Good afternoon and welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. It is my pleasure to welcome back Paul Cecala for another career-themed program. Paul has spoken before about kind of career mapping and resume writing, but today we're going to talk about something that's sometimes often overlooked, and that is networking. So, Paul is a certified global career development facilitator, work search author, and founder of Cecala Career Consultants. Since 1999, he has assisted over 3,000 job seekers, ranging from C-suite executive to college students. Paul specializes in creating job search project plans and is recognized for his empathetic listening skills. Paul currently facilitates job seeker networking groups for 4 different organizations. He has helmed the adult professional education programs for 2 colleges and a New Jersey Department of Labor one-stop career center. Paul has a BS in psychology from Florida Institute of Technology. And he has also published a book and numerous articles on career coaching in a variety of publications. So again, welcome back, Paul. Thank you so much for your continued partnership.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Before we jump into Paul's presentation, I just have a few housekeeping items to go over. First and foremost, we will be taking your questions, so please feel free to submit them at any time using the Q&A or the chat feature in the Zoom dashboard. There will be a survey available at the end of the webinar, so we ask that if you have time, please complete the survey. We always appreciate any feedback that you can give us. And if you want some more information about Paul or about anything related to your career, you can visit Cecala Career Consultants at the web address on the screen there, and I will make sure that that gets sent out in the chat as a live link momentarily. And one last thing, I just want to go over the Zoom dashboard for those of you who might not be familiar. This is what your dashboard should look like if you are using a PC or a Mac. If you're using a mobile device, the dashboard may look a little bit different, but all of the features will still be there. In the bottom left-hand corner, you can check your audio settings. So if you're using an external listening device, like a headset or earbuds, you can check to make sure that they're connected properly there. At any point during the presentation, if you run into any issues, there is a raise hand button here. You can click on that and that'll alert me, and I will send you a message in Zoom and hopefully be able to resolve any problems that you are having. And as I mentioned before, if you have any questions, you can submit them at any time using either the Q&A or the chat buttons, and we'll be happy to address them. So that is everything that I have for you. So it's my pleasure to turn it over to Paul now.
Great. Thank you. Let me go ahead and get my screen up and running here. And just so you see it, let's go to presentation mode. There we go. And I want to just do one other thing here. That wasn't what I wanted to do. Sorry, folks, just give me a moment. I apologize. Here we go. There we go. Now I got everything. So I can see everybody. So I've got, the Q&A and the chat over here. I've got my camera here, and I've got my slides over here. So if you see me ping-ponging, that's why, and I apologize for that. But a quick way to get in touch with me, you can go right to the QR code here, and that'll take you to my website. I've also put in the chat already my contact information, and you'll get to see some of that stuff again later at the end of the presentation. But we're going to talk about how do we maximize our networking opportunities in simple, easy ways to do it. And I'm going to quickly go through a couple of things here. And Amy, I see your question already. How can we combat the feeling of not wanting to bother or take advantage of people? And I'm glad you reminded me that you wanted to learn more about that. We'll come to that through the presentation for sure. So how do you define networking? And really, in its simplest and most basic form, network is nothing more than building relationships with other people. And so how do you go about building friendships and relationships with people? You're at a party and you introduce yourself to someone, and then from there you maybe have a conversation after the party, or if you're at a bar and you meet somebody, right? That's building relationships. That's networking. Online, it could be that you're engaging with people through LinkedIn or Facebook, and you have a couple of back and forth chats based on a comment or a post, and from there you take it to the next step. That's networking. That's building relationships, and that's all that networking is. Let's keep it as simple as possible, and it makes it a lot easier to do, right? So From a business perspective, right, we want to think about the relationships in that business context. So who do you know that are good at networking? I would consider learning from them. Ask them some questions. How do they do it? What makes it simple and easy for them to get to know other people? You know, think about, and if we have the opportunity, in fact, let me just ask, throw in the chat or into the Q&A, how would you define a good networker? Use simple, easy words. But while you do that, I'm going to also talk about these other comments here. How do you build friendships and relationships? We've touched on that a little bit. We're going to go into it more. And I'm going through these things fast because I want to get to the meat of what we want to talk about. These are some things that you need to improve your. Okay, yeah. So these are the things that you need to do to improve your networking. Sorry, I'm not doing well in reading my own slides there. Okay, so let's look at, there's about 13 steps that I've come up with that I think you want to consider in networking. So let's look at this first one. And I think, Amy, this will help get you to the answer of your question, not taking advantage of people. And the direct answer to that really is offer up something in advance. How can I help you? Right? What can I do for you? If you approach people from that perspective, you're not taking advantage of them. If you've built a relationship with them, then you want to help them. They want to help you because that's what being in relationship is about. So you're not taking advantage of them. So one of the things that I am very, very strong about, we need to set goals for our networking. And these are some goals. I'm going to actually show you here in a dashboard format how I would create some goals for my job search and how it pertains to networking, right? So if I'm going to spend 40 hours a week on a job search, then I want to attempt to contact at least 10 people every week as a part of my networking. And I hope to reach at least 5 people in those weeks. And if I reach to 5, I should be able to have conversations with at least 2 recruiters a week, and maybe 2 or 3 hiring managers. And remember, you know, when we're in job search, the people we most need to talk to are the ones who can say, yes, I'm putting you on payroll. And that person is the hiring manager. So all of our networking should be about how do I get access to these hiring managers and build a relationship with those hiring managers. So if I can contact or at least reach out to 5 hiring managers every week and maybe talk to 2 of them, that would be fantastic. And, you know, we want these to be somewhat of ongoing relationships, ongoing conversations. So I may reach out to 5 this week and then determine that I need to have a follow-up conversation with 1 or 2 of them next week. So that's good. But then maybe I wanted to reach out to 3 more different people that week that are hiring managers. The same thing with the generalized networking, people who can introduce us to those hiring managers. You know, I want to try and actually talk to 5 of them. I want to attempt to contact 10, because if I'm doing these kinds of numbers, it's going to build the opportunity for interviews so that I'm pretty well assured of getting a job within a 3 to 5 month period of time. Attending meetings like this is always great. I recommend you want to attend at least 1 of those a month, or maybe one that's specifically geared towards job seekers. I actually facilitate several, and I'll give you some example of those at the end of the session. But you want to, if and when you're in job search, you want to be talking to people who can help you further your job search. And so in New Jersey, we're actually very fortunate to have a lot of different opportunities for people who are in job search to come together, share ideas, connect with each other, network with each other, share other connections, and help each other further our job search. So this is great for us. There are a lot of parts of the country where that doesn't exist. And, Andrew in the state library having this kind of a meeting is a fantastic example of that. In fact, I would ask that any of you on the call feel free to put your contact information into the chat so that we can all keep in touch with each other after this meeting. And that starts our networking. Right? Probably even more important than networking with other people who are unemployed is to network with people who are employed. Right? So we want to attend professional association meetings. We want to attend industry association meetings. Those things are going to help us to keep it connected to our industry, to the hiring managers that we most want to work with. So anybody have any questions on this dashboard and setting yourself goals every week for your job search? I'll just take a moment to give you a chance to type that in, but not seeing any. So the second thing that I would like to encourage you is, as I said earlier, and I'm going to harp on this because it's that important, you most want to be talking to hiring managers more than anyone else. You always want to be looking to get in touch with hiring managers because those are the people who are going to help you to further your career the most, right? So who is that hiring authority? It's the person at the right level in the right company, the one who can say, yes, you're on payroll. We do need to avoid those gatekeepers. Today, gatekeepers tend to be more electronic than they are actually people. Used to be receptionists or security personnel, the folks that prevent you from getting in the door or getting through the phone to the right person. Now, we have more digital gatekeepers that we need to deal with as well. So anything we can do to avoid them, we want to. And the best way to avoid those gatekeepers is by having a personal connection that gets you to the hiring manager. So, Andrew, Andrew knows me, I have the connection to the hiring manager, or maybe you want to work with me, or you want me to get you a job, whatever, you go through Andrew, you get to me. That's networking. That's getting past any gatekeepers that might be in the way. We want to make networking a part of our everyday life, something we just do automatically. And, my husband, when he was sent home for COVID, one of the things that scared him the most about keeping his job was he knew part of his special sauce was being able to look around the building and say, that's the person who can answer my question today. That's the person who can answer my question tomorrow. And he'd see them in the hall and say hello, maybe grab a bite to eat or a cup of coffee with them. And he'd be building and maintaining these relationships through that personal connection. But now here he is sitting in our living room on his laptop, and he doesn't have those personal connections. And he thought, well, how can I fix that? And so what he did was exactly what's listed right here, and it's a fantastic way of networking. Create a list, say 50 people. You could make it shorter or longer, your choice, but create a list of all the people that you think are important for you to continue to maintain contact with in order to keep your job, move forward in your job, or get that new job. And every week on Monday, you just send out a quick little message to 5 of those people. And the joking way to say it is, hey, not dead yet. Hope you're not too. Let's chat. Right? Obviously, we don't want to use that, but something like, I've been thinking of you and wanted to touch base and see how you're doing. Is there anything that I can do to help you with your role? Why don't we take 5 minutes and share a cup of coffee this week? We can do it by Zoom, or if you want, we can go to a coffee shop, whatever, but let's take a few minutes and catch up. It's been a while since we last spoke. Literally, about 15 minutes before getting on this phone call, I sent an email to another career coach who is a dear friend of mine, and I haven't talked to him or seen him in a couple of weeks, but I knew that I wouldn't because his wife is going through some illness. So I just simply sent a quick email to him about half hour ago. Hey, Marty, just want you to know I'm thinking of you and your wife. Hope things are improving for you. Know that you're in my thoughts and prayers. That was the end of the email. 5 minutes later, I got back. Paul, thank you so much for thinking of me. She is improving, gave me a little more detail about that. You know, I'm looking forward to when I see you at this next networking meeting. Perfect. He's now at the top of my mind. I'm at the top of his mind. We've built on our relationship together, and he's going to remember me when he needs something. I'm going to remember him when I need something. So that's all we want to do. Just every Monday, you send out 5 quick little notes thinking of you. By the end of the week, you'll probably have spoken to 2 or 3 of those people, maybe more, and you'll have had a chance just to catch up. As a part of that conversation, for example, Amy, to your question, you know, you might want to say, oh, by the way, you know, recently I've started looking at these companies as organizations I'm interested in working for. You wouldn't happen to know anybody who works there, do you? And it's just the natural part of the conversation. So it's not that you're using people. At the end of 10 weeks, my husband got through all 50 of those names, and he went back to the top and started with the first 5 again. And every week he just did 5 more and 5 more and 5 more. And every 10 weeks he rotated through the whole list. Sometimes he spoke to all 5 people. Most time he didn't. And if they didn't, he talked to 3 of the 5 this week. When he got to that same group of 5 the next time, probably spoke to a different 2 or 3 of them, so that he was maintaining that relationship with all of those people. That's what we want to do. Simple. Social media. Let me tell you, the value of social media is all in the engagement. This took me a long time to learn and understand, but it's true. When we are looking at LinkedIn or Facebook, to just click like has very little value. I may or may not notice that you clicked like on one of my posts. But if you put a comment into that post and say, wow, Paul, that's a great idea. I wished I had done that with my interview last week. Now I can come back and engage with you and say, oh, I'm sorry, you missed that for the last interview. Let's talk about how do you see yourself using it, right? And we start a conversation in that post, in those comments. And now, if you're commenting to the hiring manager at the organization you want to work for, you're going to become known to them. And they're going to want to start saying, wait a minute, who are you and why are we having this conversation? You've got some great ideas. I need to get to know you more and better. Let's talk some more. And that could bring you then to having that one-on-one conversation, either on phone or in person. So engage with people. Yes, it's important that you produce some of your own content, but it's equally, if not more important, that when you find something of value and interest, you comment on it and maybe even ask the author a question. I had one post that I put up about a month or so ago, and one of my connections was like, wow, that's really important. Let me tell you why I think it's important and how I use it. And then another one of my connections came back and said, that's an interesting viewpoint, but this is where I think it should go and how I would use that tip. And then I came in and talked about both of those tips and connected those 2 people together separately on LinkedIn. And now they've built a relationship because they both commented on the same post. This is engaging through your social media. Okay. Are you familiar, I hope, with how to tag people or how to use hashtags? Because that's a great way to get people involved. If you look at my content, most of the time it will end with some kind of a question, and then I'll probably tag 3 or 4 or 5 people and ask them their opinion on what I posted, or ask them to answer that specific question in the post, because I'm encouraging engagement by doing that. Now, I don't know about you, but a lot of us can get sucked into social media and spend our entire day there. So we need to be very focused about how we approach it and what we do. I set aside 2 30-minute time blocks every week. And that's the time I'm on LinkedIn. Now, I don't use Facebook because it's not important to my um, role or my position. Same thing with Instagram and some of the others. So I'm primarily just on LinkedIn, right? But whatever is your social media of choice, pick maybe 2 time periods where for 30 minutes, you're going to just focus on that social media site and engaging with people and maybe putting up a post of your own. And then later in the week, you do another 30-minute session, and now you're not sucked into it. You're not there forever, and you can keep yourself balanced and focused. For that 30 minutes, that's all I do. I don't talk to anyone. I don't answer the phone. I don't see anyone. Nope. I'm just doing that for that 30-minute time period. Of course, the more personalized we can make our networking, the better. So, it's easy these days to send birthday cards, to send anniversary cards, to send work anniversary cards. Hell, LinkedIn even makes that simple, because if you go to your notifications tab on LinkedIn, every day it'll tell you of all the people in your network, who are the ones that have included their birthday in their profile, so they can tell you who's got a birthday today. And because you've put the date of your employment in there, it'll tell you who's having a work anniversary today. And then you can just send a quick, note on LinkedIn. Hey, saw that it's your birthday. I hope you have a great day. Wow, 10 years at the same company. Congratulations. I hope I can make it that long for the next one. Right? Simple, quick comments, but you're bringing yourself top of mind to that individual. You want to go one step further, then use some of the e-cards. I'm sure you've all gotten them. I get them all the time from Jackie Larson or American Greetings or a bunch of others. Oftentimes there's low cost or no cost versions, and you can send out a birthday card to anybody and everybody in your contact list. So do it. And I always end every communication with people with, hey, if there's anything I can do to help you, please just let me know. I'm here for you. That encourages people to want to talk to you further. Sending a quick email or phone call, for gratitude. Your name came up in a conversation yesterday and reminded me of how you gave me this idea. So great of an idea. Thank you for that. I just thought I'd send you a quick note to say hello and tell you that I've been thinking of you, right? Or maybe I saw this article and thought of you, or thought of your company, or thought of your business. Curious, how does that impact on you, right? If you happen to know the holidays that they celebrate, you can send them a quick holiday greeting. I know Ramadan's coming up. Wanted to just wish you a happy Ramadan, whatever it may be. But always, how can I help you? What can I do for you? And again, since it's right now the only question that we've got is from Amy, and I appreciate it. You can see, I hope, Amy, how taking the focus of how can I help you makes it so much less of you taking advantage of the other. At some point, you want to take that relationship to one more level and now actually meet in person. And it's really valuable to do that, even on LinkedIn, excuse me, or in business meetings. I really want people to use their cameras, because it's so much easier for me to connect with you or you to connect with me when we can see each other's face. So I very strongly encourage people on any of the meetings that I'm on that I want their cameras turned on. I know a lot of people just don't want to do it, and that's a shame, because it makes it harder to network. But anything we can do to create that personal connection is going to improve our networking. So don't be afraid to ask people, hey, let's go grab a drink after work today. Or, it's Friday, it's in the summer. Why don't we both go grab a bite of pizza and a drink to blow off some steam after this work week? whatever it may be. In fact, my husband and I, we kind of have a tradition. I get my hair cut every 28 days, every 4 weeks, like clockwork. And this Friday is Haircut Friday. And so my husband and I are going to get our haircut. And then after we get our haircut, there's a group of about 6 or 8 friends of ours that any 2 or 4 of them, sometimes all of them, will join us for dinner. And we have dinner out right after our haircut. And it's a fun evening for all of us, right? And it's a great way to spend a Friday night. What are you doing to connect with people, to get out and touch them and them to touch you? When you attend a meeting like today's, one of the things I would love to be doing, and I can't because I'm presenter right now, is I'd open up my LinkedIn and I'd go down the entire list of everybody who's signed into this. And I'd just reach out and say, hey, I met you on the state library meeting where Paul was talking about networking today. I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn and see how we can help each other. Click, off it goes. When I do that, and I attend meetings like this, probably 3 to 5 a week, and I'll do that on a regular basis. Typically, there's at least 2 to 4 people that I've never met before, and of them, at least half will connect with me based on that connection, that connection request. It's a simple, fast, and easy way to get to know people. And then from there, we can then say, hey, would you like to go grab a cup of coffee, or would you like to get together for breakfast, or, let's touch base some other way where we can meet each other and see each other in person. Of course, in interviewing and job search, the informational meeting is really a very, very valuable technique for getting information and researching the employers. So when you do get to know someone and you've met with them, ask them for this informational meeting. Now, this is kind of a mini interview where you are interviewing them because you want to learn from them more about the organization, more about the department, maybe more about the kinds of positions where you would fit in the organization. So you have to bring your agenda to the meeting. You have to have your questions, 3 to 5 of them, prepared in advance so you know what you want to talk about. You need to be able to give a good 30-second introduction so that they really get to know who you are and what you do. And you only want 10 or 15 minutes of their time. People will be willing to give you 10 or 15 minutes. They won't be willing to give you an hour. And if you can make that 10 or 15 minutes before work, during lunch, or maybe right after work, oftentimes it'll end up being more than the 15 minutes. I espouse people creating a document called a marketing plan. A resume looks back at what you've done in your past. When you're networking, we want to have a document that's forward-looking, that's talking about where do I want to go next, what do I want to do, and why am I qualified to do it, right? And that's a marketing plan. And so I would share my marketing plan with people when I'm doing, either by Zoom or in person, an informational meeting. And always at the end of an informational meeting, you want to ask people for more contacts. Who do they know that they think would be good people for me to connect with? And so I ask for those things at that point. Remember, though, you have asked for the meeting. You're taking their time, so be respectful of their time. Usually at about the 12-minute mark, I'd be looking at my watch and I'd say, hey, Andrew, really appreciated that you took this 15 minutes with me today. We're just about done, but I've got a couple more questions I want to ask. Should we schedule another time? Would you be willing to spend another 10 minutes with me some other time so we can talk some more? Because I'm really enjoying what I'm learning from you. More often than not, people will be willing to do it, or they'll give it to you right then and there. I know there were a couple of my clients who have said, I scheduled a 15-minute informational meeting with someone, and I had another meeting scheduled an hour later, 15 minutes away, but this person wanted to talk, and we ended up going for almost 35, 40 minutes. I had to call my other meeting and postpone it a little bit because this one went so long. Happens all the time. Turns out a month later, that person ended up working for the person he had the informational meeting with, because they got to know each other so well. soon as the job opened up, that person called my client and said, I've got an opening. I think you're perfect for it. Let's sit down and have a formal interview. Happens all the time. So I've gone over a lot of stuff, about halfway through. Any questions at this point does anybody have? And I'm not seeing anything, Andrew, are you?
Yeah, in the chat, could you repeat what is the marketing plan?
Sure. Sorry. I see that now I see that and it was blocked. So a marketing plan is simply a document that looks similar to a resume, but you've got your contact information on top. You've got the job that you're interested in. What role are you looking for next? And then maybe a position or a value statement that talks about why you are the perfect person to do that job and fill that role. And then you might include a couple of key accomplishments or other pieces that would come off of your resume, but not specifically attached to any particular job or role you've had in the past. Just that, you accomplished this. And then at the bottom half, you're going to list all of the organizations that you're most interested in working for. And so when you give this to someone, what it does is act as a reminder of the things we discussed in our informational interview, in the things we've talked about as we've gotten to know each other, so that you know enough about me and can remember what we discussed, that you feel comfortable in being able to talk more about me. And then from there, as you go home and, we wait a few days and a week goes by and you say, oh my God, Paul was looking to work for this company and I just met somebody who works there. Let me connect the two of them. So the marketing plan is talking about where am I going in the future? How do I want to get there? Who are the people in the organizations that I want to talk to? So that when you come across those people, you can refer them back to me. Good question. Anything else? Okay. Wow, perfect. Thanks, Sherry. I'm glad it works for you. And these are the kinds of things that we'll talk about, right, when we sit down on an individual basis and look at your job search and how can you perfect what you're doing in your job search. This step, it seems kind of intuitive, but it's so amazing how people miss it. And I apologize to any of you who are under 30, maybe a few others as well that are on the call, but I want you to know I am really frustrated with how the younger generations focus all of their conversation by text or instant message or some type of electronic means. We need to talk to each other. We need to actually pick up the phone or sit down together and have a conversation. I don't want to go into a long dissertation on this right now, but just as a reminder, psychological research has shown that roughly 10% of communication takes place with the words that you use. So if all you see and know about my message is what's on the screen right now, you're only getting 10% of the message. And that's what happens when we text or we email or we instant message. 30 to 40% of communication takes place in the tone of voice that's used. And, we could take the same sentence and say it with 5 different ways using 5 different emotions, and the sentence takes completely different meaning. You want to do that? You want to do that? You want to do that? There's 3 different examples, same words, completely different meaning because of the emotion behind it. Right? So when we're listening, we're getting far more information than what we're reading. That's why I encourage you not only just to pick up the phone or to use Zoom or to in some way have that personal connection beyond just the written word, but when you do that, you then need to listen intently and listen intentionally. Right? Listening intently means I'm totally focused right on you and nothing else. I don't care about the distractions happening over here. I don't care about the kids whining. I don't care about the alarm going off for my dinner. I'm focused on you. Right? I'm listening intensely. Listening with intention means I'm listening for understanding. I'm listening to hear the words you're saying and get a grasp of your message versus what most people try to do, which is listen to figure out when can I interject and get my thought out there because I'm more important anyway, don't you know? And so when we're networking, asking other people questions and then listening with intention and listening intently makes them feel loved, wanted, important, cared for. And now they're going to be more interested in wanting to listen to you and talk to you and help you. Right? So listen with intention, listen intently. And the things on the screen there are some ways that you can practice listening with intently and intentionally. I do actually a whole presentation just on listening skills. And if you're interested, let me know and we can talk further about that because this is really becoming a lost art and there's science to it, but it takes a lot of practice and a lot of intentionality to become better at listening. If I've said it once, I've already said it 100 times, right? Be ready to give before you receive. So the more I can give to you, the more likely you are going to feel compelled to want to give back to me. And these are just some simple ways that you can give to someone. Share your network with them. My gosh, so many people, it's amazing the number of my clients who say, you know what, Paul, I didn't get the job, but they had this other opening and I gave them the name of a friend of mine. That person ended up getting the job that they interviewed for. And a week later, I got a phone call saying they had another opening that was better for me. And now I'm working there. Right? So how can you share what knowledge you have with other people in a way that will be beneficial to them? We talked a little bit about sharing information via articles or industry information. What other ways can you come up with to share things with people? And I know if we spent some time on that, we could probably come up with a lot of different things we can do. So take a few minutes to think about what are the ways that you can give something of value to someone else, remembering that it does not have to be a tangible thing. It can be something that's intangible and it's still of value and they're going to be indebted to you because of it. We all have heard, ask open-ended questions. Excuse me. And this is what kind of makes a good interviewer different from a bad interviewer, actually. They're asking a lot of open-ended questions. I'm sure in terms of interviews, you've heard about people asking situational or behavioral questions. Well, when we're networking, we want to do the same thing. We want to ask those questions that can't be answered with a simple yes or no. We want to ask questions that get people to tell stories and share information, right? And so here are some sample questions that you might want to ask during an informational interview or while networking. Excuse me. And by the way, it's probably a good time for me to remember to tell you, if you are interested in getting a copy of these slides, I'd be very happy to share them with you. You just have to reach out to me directly to do it. And so I gave you that QR code and my contact information at the beginning. I'm going to give you that information again at the end, but I'm happy to share these slides with you so that you don't have to frantically write down all these questions or potentially take a lousy photo on your phone or a screenshot, but reach out and you can have the slides. You can see how these questions beg the responder to tell a story, to give more information. And that's the goal. This is the most often forgotten or skipped over step, and it's also the most important step. You must follow up. Must follow up. And one of the things you want to do is always set up that next conversation. Right? And literally, even in an interview or when networking, the next conversation is important. During interviews, people often will say, well, we've got 3 or 4 more people to talk to. We'll get back to you in a week or so. That's a real simple way of blowing you off and saying, don't call me, I'll call you, which they're never going to do. I'm not satisfied with that. I want to know what the result is of this interview. That's great. I really appreciate that you've got other people to talk to. You figure maybe next Friday you'll be done with that. If I haven't heard back from you by next Friday, I'm going to give you a call Friday afternoon. Would that be okay? So now I've set a specific date and an approximate time for the conversation. And more often than not, people will say, yes, sure, go ahead, no problem. They're going to blow it off, still think that you're not going to do it. Well, you make sure you do it, because that shows your interest in the position. If I'm networking with someone, for example, even with Andrew, when we're done with today's conversation, I'm going to say to Andrew, hey, this was really great. Before the call, I mentioned to him some new business that I've gotten from these conversations that I had in the past. And so I'm going to ask him about setting up for a session or 3 for next year and see if we can't get on the calendar already going forward. And if he's not ready to do that, then I'm going to ask him, when do you expect to be ready to do that? And I'm going to put on my calendar that he's going to be ready the first week of December. So I'm going to give him a call in the first week of December to set up to do presentations for the state library in 2024. Be ready, Andrew, it's coming. So always set up your next conversation. I want to give you 2 examples of how important it is to do this follow-up. I had a client who was trying like the devil to get in touch with the sales vice president for the company he most wanted to work for. This was a few years ago, and so the VP had a private secretary. He was able to get the phone number of the VP and was able to reach out to the secretary on a regular basis. May not be quite the same to do today, but you could probably make something like this happen. So he called and left a message. Week went by, didn't get a call back. He called again. Another week went by, he called again. By the 3rd and 4th week that he had left a message for this VP, the secretary was starting to get to know his voice and him a little bit. And so they started to build some rapport and a relationship. Well, fast forward, 20 weeks go by and he's called this VP every week for 20 weeks. And now the secretary is embarrassed. Oh my God, I can't believe he's still not called you back. I promise you, I'm giving him your messages. Week 28. The VP finally calls him back and says, listen, I don't know who the hell you are or why we need to talk, but my secretary has told me now that you've called every week for almost a half a year. Who are you and what do you want? Well, I think I'm one of the best salesmen you'll ever meet, and you can see I'm persistent. I'd love to take 10 or 15 minutes of your time and talk about your sales system and see if there's ways I can help improve it. A week later, he had an interview. 3 weeks later, he was working. 6 months after that, he was the #1 salesman in the company. He only got the opportunity because for 28 weeks, he continued to follow up with the opportunity that he wanted. Another story. A 25-year-old young man applied for a job at his dream company. He wanted to be the executive assistant to the CEO. Had no experience doing this, but it got to him and a 40-some-year-old woman who had a lot of experience as an executive assistant. They went with the 46-year-old, I think it was a 46-year-old woman. He said, I understand, I appreciate that you didn't want me this time, but I really want to work for your company, and I really appreciate the time that you spent and all that I learned from you. Can I keep in touch with you and keep you up to date on what's going on with my job search? The CEO said, yeah, sure, go ahead. Every month for 6 months, he reached back out by phone or email to that CEO and had some kind of an update conversation with them on what's going on in his job search. The last conversation, hey, I just accepted a new job. I'm really excited for it, but I still really want to work for you. I don't think this company's as good as yours. 2 days later, he gets a phone call from the CEO. I just fired that woman because it just wasn't working out. If you're still interested, I'd love to give you a shot and have you come work for me. Well, he was able to leave the other job in an appropriate way. That was 13 years and 3 promotions ago that he said yes. And he got the opportunity because of the follow-up that he did. How are you following up with people? And how much are you sending your thank you notes? What are you doing to ensure that you keep your name top of mind for the people in your network? Of course, we got to keep complete records on all of this stuff. And so I use a very simple Excel spreadsheet. There are all kinds of programs and software you can buy. And if you want and you have the money, go for it. That's great. But a simple Excel spreadsheet will do the trick. And if you want this one, all you have to do is let me know, and I can send you a copy of this specific spreadsheet format. There are a couple of things here that I think are really important that I like about it. I mean, certainly all of the contact information is valuable. And knowing when I last spoke to someone and what type of a visit was it or a contact was it is important. But you know what? The most important thing is this comments column where I'm keeping a running list of our conversations and the main points that we talked about every time we talk. That way, when I talk to you next, I can see this and know what our conversation was about and can remember to talk to you about some of those things. For example, Andrew and I were talking about our most recent vacations that we took in the month of September. And so when I talk to him next, I'm probably going to ask him about that vacation and what his next vacation is. Right? So I can keep track of that information here. The second most important column, I think, is this callback column. Because using that example of Andrew and I'm expecting that he's going to say, call me the first week of December to set up dates for next year. Well, I'm going to put in this callback December 2nd. And now every morning when I come down to my desk, I open this spreadsheet and I sort on callback date for today's date. And there I have listed all the people that I need to talk to today, or all the people that I haven't talked to yet this week that were important for me to talk to this week. So I can then make those phone calls throughout the day today. Keeps me on track with connecting with all the people that I need to connect with. And it reminds me of what we were talking about and what we need to next talk about in our conversation. So you want to do the same thing. I've met one individual, it was a CEO, an entrepreneur that I worked for in one of my first professional jobs. And this guy was amazing. The information that he could keep in his head, I can't do it. We were walking from our booth at the center of the convention hall, out of the convention hall and across the street to a hotel for a meeting. It took us an hour to get out of the convention hall because we would take 3 or 4 steps and he would go, hey, Steve, hey, it's so good to see you. Last year, weren't you on crutches from that fall skiing in Aspen? How's your leg doing? Mary, oh my God, how great to see you again. How is your kid doing? I remember he was just graduating 8th grade last time I talked to you. Literally, in the 100 feet it took to get from the center of the convention hall to the door of the convention hall, we stopped every 5 steps and spoke to probably 60 or 80 people. And he recalled their name, who they worked for, what their last conversation was, and how something personal about their life. I can't do that. I don't know many people who can, and God bless him for being able to. I use this sheet to make that happen. So questions on anything we've talked about today, because that's my last slide for us for today before I go into some background stuff from about me. So please, any other questions you have, now is a great time to get them into the chat or into the Q&A. While you're doing that, just if you're interested or know someone who would be interested, I'll be doing a master class in the job search process. It's called the work search process, a master class in the methodology, and I'll be teaching it at Princeton Adult School on Zoom. So it'll be online, anybody can join. There's the website to access that class if you're interested, and we can go through the entire process that I teach in project managing your job search. And I think that was the first presentation we did earlier this year, was how to project manage your job search. But that was an overview. Here we're going to go into all the details of it, and you're going to get about 20 or 25 worksheets that will help you work through that process so that when you're done with this master class, you are prepared to do a complete job search and you've got all the documentation you need ready to go. It's a great opportunity, and I'd love to see some of you participate in that. The Princeton Adult School, and it's I think $150, I think is what they're charging for. It's not that bad. Mentioned earlier that I participate in or facilitate multiple groups on job search. This one's my favorite, the Yojo Club. I love talking with the folks who are under 30 years old. The Outstanding Careers Group is another great one for those of you who are in the LGBTQ community. We get together once a month and talk about job search, and it's a safe place for people in that space to be able to share about their lives and how that's impacting on their job search. Excuse me. Executives in Job Transition is pretty much for anybody and everybody. And then the Panther Alumni Career Coaching Group is specifically for people who are alumni of Florida Institute of Technology. However, if you think a group like this would be of value to you, I'd be happy to help you or your organization set up such a group, and we can facilitate it together. These 4 groups are very peer focused, meaning the people who are on the call all get a chance to share what's going on in their job search, and then have everybody else in the group help them solve whatever challenge they're having in their job search. Typically, it kind of goes like this. You get about 10 minutes. You have a minute or two to give us your 30-second introduction and an update on your job search and pose your question, your challenge to the group. And then the group will take the remainder of your 10 minutes or so to offer up their thoughts and ideas on how to solve, resolve, or improve on your job search and get past that particular challenge. People walk away from these groups really energized and really excited and feeling like they've really been heard and that they're not alone. Some great friendships end up coming from these groups. So if you're interested in any one of those, by all means, let me know and I can get you connected to all of them. The Professional Support Group of Morris County is similar to this in that it's a speaker's presentation group. But unlike this, it's not in webinar format. It's just in an open Zoom room. And so you get the opportunity to directly interact with the professional who is presenting at that particular time. This group meets every Wednesday morning. I do co-facilitate it as well. All of these groups are on Zoom. So doesn't matter where you are in the state or the country or even the world, as long as you get online at the right time, you can be a part of the group. Here are some upcoming presentations that I have for the next couple of months. I'm doing a lot of speaking right now, it looks like, for the next few months. And so some of the topics, work search buddies, finding a job with a little help from a friend. I wrote a book on that topic. It's a very little book, but I wrote a book on work search buddies and how you can use a friend to be an accountability buddy in moving your job search forward. So If you're interested in participating in any of these, by all means, just let me know, or you can reach out to the organization through these particular websites. And there's my contact information one more time. I'm also going to paste it again into the chat. And that's what I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. I hope you took something from it. I would very much love for each of the 8 of you who are on this call to type either into the chat or the Q&A one thing that you're taking away from this conversation. What's the one most important thing that you've learned from spending this hour with me today?
Thanks, Paul. We do have a question. What is social media branding activity? Is branding activity the same as likes, comments, etc.?
Yes. Yes. So, you know, everything that's out there in the public about you is what makes up your brand, right? And so you want to make sure that all of that information is representing you in the way that you want. So even when you're commenting on Facebook or on LinkedIn, or you're engaging with people, or you're liking posts, you want to make sure that all of those things fit with the representation, the brand you want the world to see and know of you. So you need to think twice about the political comments. You need to think twice about the off-color comments or jokes, because that's creating part of your brand. So everything that you're putting into your social media, you want it to be on brand, and all of those things are things that are going to be a part of how you're networking with other people, because it's bringing you access to those other people. I hope that answers the question. Anybody, anything else that you want to ask, and I'm really serious about wanting to see some of those comments from you of what you liked most about today's presentation. So if you could take a minute and just pop a word or two into the chat or into the Q&A, that would be really fantastic. Well, again, thank you for your time. Andrew, thank you for setting this up. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I look forward to hearing or talking to some of you outside of today's session.
Thank you so much, Paul. We appreciate you speaking to us again. It's been fantastic. As always, it's chock full of information. Might take us a while to digest, but you know, it's job searching, all of that. It's hard work, you know, but in the end, it pays off. You just have to stick to it. So,
Great, thanks.
all right. Well, thank you so much, Paul. Thank you, everybody, for attending today. Be safe, be well, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Bye now.